want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Fogham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
L'entrepreneuriat digital vous intéresse-t-il? Vous voulez apprendre à construire des projets digitaux? Aimeriez-vous gagner des revenus passifs conséquents en tout lieu? Voici la plateforme des professionnels du digital, la Diaspoara Academy. Ici, vous retrouverez les meilleurs professionnels de la diaspora mondiale connectés sur notre plateforme. Vous allez pouvoir acquérir des formations adéquates qui feront de vous des entrepreneurs digitaux compétents. Étudiants, entrepreneurs, coachs, instructeurs et entreprises, Diaspoara Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Elle vous offre la possibilité de suivre votre formation en mode virtuel à partir de chez vous, où que vous soyez sur la planète. Toutes nos formations disponibles en ligne sont dispensées de manière interactive. Il suffit de vous inscrire et vous pourrez les suivre depuis chez vous. Au cours de la formation, vous passerez des quiz et examens selon votre parcours. En outre, à partir de votre tableau de bord, vous suivrez vos performances et progressions. Vous pourrez aussi communiquer avec vos instructeurs et recevoir des notifications. À la fin de votre parcours de formation, vous recevrez un certificat Diaspoara Academy Certified. Que vous soyez débutant ou responsable d'entreprise, Diaspoara Academy est une opportunité pour vous. Saisissez-la! Enfin, que vous soyez coach ou instructeur, ayez accès à un millier d'étudiants à travers notre plateforme. Merci de choisir Diaspoara Academy, le meilleur choix. Pour plus d'informations, allez sur www.diaspoaracademy.com. Diaspoara Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
En vue de performer vos compétences et intégrer l'espace de l'entrepreneuriat digital, la nouvelle chambre de commerce nationale et la nouvelle chambre de commerce USA-RDC, en partenariat avec Diaspoara Academy, installée aux États-Unis d'Amérique, vous offrent des sessions de formation en entrepreneuriat digital à des coûts réduits. Ces formations vous permettront d'intégrer le monde numérique et améliorer vos compétences en digital au bénéfice de cette terre d'avenir et grand marché qu'est la République démocratique du Congo. Pour participer aux formations, envoyez vos contacts WhatsApp au plus 243 99 073 0795. Enregistrez-vous aujourd'hui car les places sont limitées. Diaspoara Academy, la plateforme des professionnels du digital.
Hello everyone, welcome to the African Diaspora Grassroots voting on Afrique TV, the #1 digital channel out of Washington DC. I am your host, Busi Matsiko, and live from our studio in New York City. And I welcome you all, and we will have a special guest, and we'll be discussing everything ranging from immigration, citizenship, why it's important to vote in your local elections, as well as the upcoming U.S. election. We can be watched live on 4 platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, as well as our website, www.afriquetoday.com. Did you know that we're on Twitter? Did you know that we're on Smart TV? Yes, we are. Stay tuned. Hi, once again, welcome back. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Karla Silvestre. She is the Director of Community Engagement at Montgomery College, a position she has held since 2014. Welcome, Ms. Sylvester.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to know that you're in New York City and doing well, and so excited today to hear election news about our vice presidential picks. It's a very timely show. Lots to talk about.
How exciting, isn't it? Yes. That is, it's very exciting that we've heard about a new vice presidential pick. And yes, I want to dive into your bio because you've accomplished so much. And I'm glad to have you on this show today. And I'm excited about what we're going to be discussing about. Ms. Karla Sylvestre currently serves, as I mentioned, as the Director of Community Engagement at the Montgomery College, a position she's held since 2014. She leads the college's efforts to be the community's college through partnerships, engagement centers, outreach, as well as collaborative problem solving. Ms. Karla Sylvestre was elected to her first 4-year term to the Montgomery County Board of Education on November 6, 2018. She serves as the chairperson of the Board of Education Strategic Planning Committee, as well as a member of the Committee on Special Populations. Just tell us more about who you are and a summary of yourself.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, in this topic of voting and civic engagement, I'm an immigrant. I came to this country when I was 8 years old from Guatemala. We were fleeing political persecution. My father fled the country first, and then my family were able to get political asylum. And I became a citizen 12 years ago. I have been working in the field of education, as you said, now at Montgomery Community College, and I ran for the Board of Education 2 years ago to be able to be an elected official in the community and really have a greater impact in change. I live here in Maryland, and I am the proud mother of 2 girls here in our school system.
Yes, mother of girls. How old are your girls?
I have an 18-year-old and a 13-year-old going into 8th grade, and the oldest one is going to start college soon.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. I have 3 girls, so I'm a mom of girls between the ages of 10 and 2. Yes, so that's why I'm like, oh, girls. Yeah, so why did you decide to run for the Board of Education of Montgomery County?
Well, they say that for an immigrant, the greatest act of civic engagement is running for office. And so I had participated in committees for the school system for over 10 years. And as a mother, you know that that's a lot of time that you spend away from your family.
Yes.
After 10 years of participation, I realized that I wasn't having the impact that I wanted to have. Mm-hmm. And so there was an opportunity, there was a vacancy. Another woman, my mentor, encouraged me to run, and that's so important. Sometimes we don't believe that we can do it, but we need another woman to support us and encourage. Yes. And so she encouraged me, and I ran really because I felt like I had a lot to offer. Mm-hmm. And somebody had to do it. Somebody needed to step up and do it. And you look to your right, you look to your left, and nobody's doing it. So eventually I said, all right, I guess it's gonna be me. And as everything that I do, I put in 110% effort. And fortunately, I was able to win with a very narrow margin, only 2% of the vote. Wow. But a win is a win, and here I am today.
Absolutely. How inspirational, and this goes on to show. It sounds very fulfilling, and many people probably also don't understand how important the Board of Education is. And please just explain some of the stuff that the Board of Education does, the role of the Board of Education.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Here in the United States, we don't have a very strong central Ministry of Education. We have the Department of Education, but that's not where the power is. The power is at the local level. Every county pays their taxes and has their own school system. And so here in Montgomery County, Maryland, we have our own school system, and we have an elected Board of Education who makes the decisions about how those local tax dollars are spent. Sets the policies, appoints the superintendent, and a whole list of responsibilities. But in Montgomery County, we have a $2.6 billion budget. The Board of Education approves how that money is spent. As I mentioned, the leadership of the school system is also very important, and we appoint the superintendent. We decide on policies. For example, how are the grades going to be determined? The grading policy, transportation policy, who gets to ride the bus to school? How far of a distance qualifies you to ride the bus? More recently, the mobile phones. What's the policy for allowing mobile phones in schools, and under what circumstances? Those are all the things that the Board of Education, just examples of some of the things that the Board of Education oversees. And basically, it's citizens elected to represent the county citizens, making sure that the school system is running well. So there's a monitoring function and also a guidance. We want to guide the direction of where the school system is going.
Wow. I mean, that is very key information, because many a time people think of the PTA and they think of being involved in the PTA, but they probably also don't know how they could get involved with the Board of Education, or how they could run for office, or how they could effect change. What are your recommendations to people who could be allies and could help facilitate your work in the Board of Education?
Yeah, I think that in every community, you have the opportunity to write your Board of Education, your elected leaders, and tell them what you're thinking about all the decisions that are being made. Right now, everyone's talking about how do we go back to school, online or in person. We hear from a certain number of parents, but there's a lot of parents out there that we never hear from. And so definitely I would encourage all our listeners to look up the email addresses for your elected leaders and write to them. Tell them, this is what I want. This is what I expect. I want my children to do this and not that. Also, now we can submit video testimony. So anyone with an iPhone can record a 3-minute message and send it to your elected leaders. Again, it's great to see a name and a face and to hear the testimony about what's important to your family and to your students. So yeah, I encourage you to, if you're happy, compliment. If you're not happy, complain, and ask that they try to serve your needs as well. Every school system is very diverse, lots of different needs, but your voice is important and your voice needs to be heard.
Wonderful. That's wonderful information, because the audience here is diaspora, and sometimes so busy working or trying to adjust to a new country as well. They're in different parts of their journey. I mean, you're familiar with the immigrant story, and
right.
How can you tie your own experience as an immigrant to what someone who thinks, some parents are so busy working they don't even have time to be involved in all this stuff? What would be your message to such a person?
I mean, the most important thing is the communication with your teacher and your principal, because that's what's impacting you the most directly every day. And so if you don't have time to get involved with the Board of Education, at least make the effort to make sure that your children's teachers know who you are, that the principal knows who you are, that you are paying attention to the quality of education that your kids are getting. And also, if you don't have time, I know a lot of our young people, our high school students who are children of immigrants, they become civically involved. They start to come and testify to the Board of Education. They have the English language fluency. They probably feel more comfortable doing it than the parents. So sometimes if your children are older, I recommend also getting them involved and speaking up for the family. It's good for them, it's a good experience for them, but also it's a way to have your voice heard. But definitely reach out at the school level. Make sure that they know who you are, that you care about your kids' education, and that you are a partner with the school to have your children's need met.
Yes. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, I can't wait to hear what you're going to talk about in the second half of this session. Stay tuned, everyone.
Thank you, Ms.
Welcome back to the African Diaspora Grassroots Voting, and I welcome back my dear guest, Karla Silvestre, to the show. Karla, we're now going to just discuss everything voting, from some of the myths to some of the challenges, as well as the opportunities. And I'm sure you're going to help us navigate this voting scenario. One, I'd like to know, what would you advise someone who thinks they don't need to vote, they're uninterested in voting, and why should they vote? Voting doesn't impact their lives.
Yes, that's you hear that a lot, and it's such a shame. This is a democracy, and it only works if we participate. It doesn't work if we sit back and let others make decisions for us. If you don't vote, the other guy down the street in that other state, in that other community is voting, and they're getting their choice picked, and our choices getting picked. So don't let others make decisions for you. Make the best informed decision that you can. Do not worry about it. Just do it. It's so important to vote, because if you don't vote, you get ignored. You get ignored by the politicians, by the government. Those communities don't vote. We don't have to pay attention to them. Their priorities, okay, maybe we'll go listen to them once in a while, but the people that vote get the attention of our elected officials. And so
make noise.
First and foremost, yes, make noise, be heard, and make sure that people know your priorities, what's important to you. And so if you vote, the politicians are going to come and ask you what you want. But if you don't vote, they have too many people to cover. They might be nice people, responsible, and they really might care about you, but they have other people to get to in order to win the vote. So don't let others decide the big decisions in our community. Get out the vote, and you pick who you want to represent you in our local government, in our state government, and in our national government.
You've heard what Karla has said. If you don't vote, you will be forgotten. You don't expect change to take place unless you exercise your civic duty. Karla, this also applies to the census. People don't fill out their census forms. They don't care. They don't think it's going to affect their lives. If it doesn't affect them directly, it will affect their generations. I mean, how often is a census done?
Yes, only 10 years. And what I keep telling people is the money that we pay as taxpayers goes to the federal government. Mm-hmm. And then they redistribute it to the people based on population. We're sending our money to the federal government. We need to make sure it comes back to us. But if we don't get counted, they're going to say, there's only 100,000 people there, when really there were 300,000 people there. And we should have gotten 3 times the amount of money back. Again, that's our money coming back to our communities. I work for Montgomery College, and we get Pell Grants from the federal government to be able to give students so that they can study. They don't have to pay that money back. Again, that's money that's determined on the census. If we have an undercount, if we're not counting all of our residents, we're not going to get as much of that money for our students to study without having to pay it back. That's just one example of something that's very near and dear to me as an employee of a community college, because so many low-income students depend on that Pell money to be able to go to school. So, we have to get counted. And then just as the diaspora, don't you want people to know that you're here and that you're not going anywhere and that you're participating? If you don't get counted, they're going to say, here in Montgomery County, we don't know how many African residents we have. This is the first time that the census is allowing us to write our country of origin and our race and ethnicity as we are defining it. So before, Africans were all classified under Black and African American. Now in the census, in the 2020 census, you can say, yes, I'm Black, African American, but also Nigerian, Ethiopian, Cameroonian. And so now for the first time, we'll be able to know how many residents we have in this community from each of the countries. And again, if we have a big community from a French-speaking country, then we'll have to develop more services to meet their needs. If we don't have that information, it's just, the Black community, but we're not able to really meet the needs of different parts of that Black community based on their country of origin. So be proud of where you come from, get counted. This is our home now. And it's important that our local governments have the right information so that they can serve you better.
Thank you so much for that insight, because our Black, Latina, Latin voice needs to be heard, as well as the people of color. They just need to be heard, and it's important that does not get lost. And representatives such as yourself are able to understand that because you have lived that life as well, and you're able to communicate it across, because it's important that people know this information. Unfortunately, ignorance is not considered an excuse, but it's always helpful when we have such information because it helps us. Knowledge is power, you know? And what would you say to immigrants who are concerned, who are fearful of voter intimidation, especially in these coming elections?
Well, we as the immigrant community, we have faced many challenges all along the way. And yes, we can expect that there is going to be voter suppression. There's already all kinds of things that are happening that are making it more difficult for people to go out to vote. We have to be aware of that. We have to push back and say, no one's going to stop me from voting. If you're going to have fewer polling stations, I'm going to request my ballot in the mail so that I can put it in the mail, not have to get in line, not have to be at risk of being affected by COVID-19. I'm going to find a way to get my vote to count. Let's be very aware that there is going to be voter suppression, and we have to fight it. We have to find ways that we're not affected. If we wait until the last minute, there's going to be long lines because, with COVID-19, we have to space out 6 feet. There's going to be fewer voting places, but let's be informed about that. Let's know that's going to happen. So let's get ready. If you want to vote by mail, you can request your ballot and fill it out at home, nice and calm at your own leisure. Put it in the mail or drop it off at a ballot box, and you're done. If you want to vote in person, don't wait to the last day. Take advantage of the early voting days, but be ready to wait in line because it is going to be, there are going to be long lines, but plan for it and just make sure that you don't wait to the last minute, and it's your duty to get your vote as a citizen of this country into those ballot boxes and to be counted.
Thank you so much for that piece of information. I should have asked you about the importance of voting in the local elections before that, asking you about the general elections, but it doesn't hurt to still talk about it, because people dismiss it. And then also on the elections days, they only think about the presidential candidate. They don't think about the other people on the ballots. Please speak to that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Most people vote only for the presidential race. But we also have in this election in November, we're also going to have members of Congress that are up for re-election. Mm-hmm. And here in our community, we have school board members that are up for re-election. And so again, the federal government has an impact in our lives, but most of the decisions that impact us every day take place with local government. So your mayor, your county executive, your school board members, your council members, all those people are making laws that affect you every day. Who's going to fix the pothole down the street? Not the president. Mm-hmm. Your local leaders are going to fix that pothole. Who's going to clean up the park so your children can play basketball in a nice environment? Your local leaders. Better schools, better community centers, less traffic. All those things are decided at the local level, not at the presidency. The presidency is important. We want a strong leader that's going to move this country forward. But again, what's going to impact you more on a daily basis are the decisions that are made at the local level. So there's great resources for getting informed. The League of Women Voters always puts out a voter's guide that tells you what each candidate, they ask them all the same questions and they answer all of their questions so you can get informed. Your local newspaper here in this area, the Washington Post, also puts a voter's guide. So, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just pick up the paper, spend the morning checking out the candidates, maybe the ones you haven't heard of, and then you show up with a more informed decision.
Wow, how informative. I mean, thank you so much for your wisdom, I would say. And as we wrap up, I would like to thank our dear guest Karla for her insights regarding education, regarding immigration, regarding the immigrant story, why it's important to vote in your local elections as well as the upcoming general elections. Karla, what would be your closing remarks to this audience? I'm so glad you were able to make it to our show. We loved having you, and we look forward to amazing years ahead. And
thank you so much for the invitation. I would say just my closing thoughts for the listeners are, we are proud of where we come from the countries that we come from. And now we live here in the United States, and this is our home. So we have to participate to continue to make this a great community. We have to make it even greater. And so proud of where you come from, but also proud of where you are now, participating just like you all are, the organizers, to make this community even better.
We are American and we have to exercise our civic duty. I mean, I'm in total agreement with you. And I would like to thank you once again, Karla, and I would like to thank you all for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday. At the same time, please spread the word about this show. I appreciate you all, and I count on you to spread word about the African Diaspora Grassroots voting on Afrique Today. Thank you all and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Jamais nous disons stop à la vente de nos terres. Jamais ne cédons pas au chantage et belles paroles. L'héritage que nos ancêtres nous ont légué, c'est pas l'argent, les voitures et maisons, pour assurer la survie de nos familles. C'est la forêt et la terre. Missy est mort, elle est baillon c'est ma eie. Missy bonne te honi, elle est baillon c'est ma eie. Et ma kubasia na ton mambo manyoko. Nabe café na biko konone, umo woso mo sangue olia. Toyanaka obonongo yosumise inundanga abonisa sakonane. Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente des terres banais.
Abeneni bekime
Uwanu tonelena Mokatu moti Usunu ni fwala Abanisa
Tuyana kobonanga Tobonanga falaba
Tobe munu moti Bakakaka obusi
Élevons nos voix Chantons sur tous les toits
Pour que demain soit plus clair.
Si t'entends ma voix La voix des sans-voix
Ce qu'on a de plus cher,
Ce sont nos terres
ce qu'on a de plus cher, ce sont nos terres. Toyanaka, obonongo, yosumise, inundanga, abonisa, sakonane. Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente des terres banais.
On peut tromper une partie du peuple tout le temps et tout le peuple une partie du temps. Mais on ne peut tromper tout le peuple tout le temps. Oui au développement, non à l'exode rural.
Diaspora Banen, chef traditionnel élite, fils et filles, que chacun apporte sa pierre à l'édifice. Mounani Moundamonte.
Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente des terres banais. Non à la vente
Peuple banane,
des terres banais.
tous nous sommes interpellés.
Non à la vente
Soyons unis.
des terres banais. Non à la vente
Bonani petit me patenem.
banais.
Mokatu moti fosuni folok.
Non à la vente
Monani foye mo.
Nous remercions le collectif des artistes banais et son président, Monsieur Écombile Vincent Olivier, pour sa lutte acharnée pour le réveil de la culture banane.